I'm Pastor Mark Buetow, and this is another Higher Things video short for Bible 101. The days are coming, says the Lord, that I will raise to David a branch of righteousness. King David was a big deal in the Old Testament. He was a king, the shepherd king, who most prefigured Christ, maybe perhaps of all the kings. And it is from the line of King David that the Messiah, that the Christ, that Jesus would be born. The book of Ruth takes us from the time of the Judges to the time of the first Kings, at least by genealogy. It really comes as a transition between the book of Judges and the book of 1 Samuel, in which we go out of the time of the Judges to when Israel has its first king. And it's a beautiful story. It's a story of redemption. It's a story in which there are many details that point us to Christ and in which we see pictures of Christ. And so here's how it goes. There was a guy from Bethlehem. He was of the tribe of Judah. Bethlehem, tribe of Judah, sound familiar? And his name was Elimelech, and he married a woman named Naomi. And there was a bad famine, so they decided to take their family, which had two sons, Mahlon and Chilion, and they moved to the land of Moab. Now Moab, you will remember, was descended from one of the kids that Lot had by the incestuous relations with his daughters when he was drunk and all that. And so the Moabites were always Israel's enemy. It was a very sort of strange situation. But that wasn't Israel. So here's Elimelech and Naomi and Mahlon and Chilion, a nice Hebrew, a nice Jewish family living by the promises of God, but not even in the land of Israel. They're living in the land of Moab. Well, as it turns out, Elimelech dies. Now Naomi's a widow. Well, she's got her two sons to take care of her, Mahlon and Chilion, and they both married Moabite women. One named Ruth and the other named Orpah. But then after a while, Mahlon and Chilion died. So here's Naomi, who's left with no one in her family. No husband, no sons. And so she tells Ruth, and she tells Orpah, you ladies, I appreciate your love and concern for me, but I'm going back to my people in Judah, in Bethlehem, and so you go, and I hope you have a good life and find new husbands and all that. And Ruth says, and Orpah, no, we'll stick with you. And Naomi says, look, are you going to wait until I go and have kids again? And even if I did, are you going to wait till they grow up to be married again? That just doesn't make sense. Go, live your life, and that will be fine. What happens next is pretty cool. Ruth says to Naomi, no, Naomi, I'm not going to leave. I will go where you go, and your home is going to be my home, and your God will be my God. So Ruth goes back to Bethlehem, back to the land of Judah, back to Israel with her mother-in-law. And, well, she's going to take care of her as best she can. Back in Bethlehem, Naomi says to Ruth, listen, go into the fields of a guy we know. His name's Boaz. He's kind of a relation to my husband and so on. And go and pick up the grain that's left over after they harvest it, which was kind of the rule in Israel that you wouldn't go and get every last piece of grain because you would leave some for the poor people. So there's Ruth trying to scratch out a living, get a little something for her and Naomi, until Boaz, the man who owned the field, takes notice of her. So Naomi hatches a plan wherein Ruth goes into Boaz at night and sleeps down by the end of his feet. Well, this is during the harvest season, so they're sleeping kind of out by the fields and the threshing floor. And Boaz notices her and he says, listen, I will do the honorable thing for you and make you my wife, provided that there's not a closer relative who will redeem you. There is a closer relative, and so he has first dibs on the land that belonged to Elimelech, because you could redeem it in your own family. You could get that land back. But he says, if he doesn't, then I will do it. So Boaz goes down to the front gate of the city and makes a deal with this guy. Says, listen, I got some land from my kinsman Elimelech. He says, you are the first in line to be able to buy it back. And the guy says, well, sure, I'll buy it back. And Boaz says, well, if you do, you got to take Ruth along with you. And he says, well, no, I can't do that because I'm already married and stuff. So Boaz says, well, then I'll take the land. And the other guy says, okay, it's all yours. So Boaz, who's also in the line of Judah, gets the land, and along with it, he's able to marry Ruth and then to take care of. And it wasn't long after that Boaz and Ruth had a son named Obed. And that brings us back to Jesus' family tree. They had a son named Obed. Obed's son was named Jesse. Jesse ended up having 12 sons, the youngest of whom was David, who eventually became the king of Israel. So there you have it. The Lord continues to preserve the promise. He hasn't forgotten about it. He even used the strange and bizarre sins of Lot way back when, who through the people of Moab provided a faithful daughter-in-law for Naomi and a husband for Boaz, in whom would be, or from whom would be, Jesus and King David. And so there you go. The Lord keeps his promise, and that's the story of Ruth. More next time on Bible 101. I'm Pastor Mark Buetow.